What is up everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be going over the home buying process step by step, as well as common misconceptions that occur and the truth about buying versus renting. So let's get started with the home buying process. What a lot of people do when they're ready to start buying a house is they go online, they go on Zillow, and they start looking at houses, not knowing what they can afford, not knowing how much house is enough house or too much. Don't do this. I highly recommend to first find a lender. Now, I highly recommend that you shop around for a lender. So this looks like going to probably 3 to 5 places and submitting your information over and over again. It will feel very redundant. You'll give them things like your credit score, your work history, paycheck stubs, things like that. It'll feel very redundant, but you'll make sure that you get the best deal on your first house. This is a really, really big decision, possibly a 10, 20, 30-year decision. And so by putting a little extra effort up front, making sure that you get the best lender with the best deal for you, this can save you tens of thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. I know that when we bought our first house, we were very intimidated by our lender. We didn't know what questions to ask. We didn't know what we didn't know. And I highly recommend for you guys to do your research beforehand. These are some things that you'll want to ask your lender. You definitely want to ask them about PMI. PMI is private mortgage insurance, and it's basically you throwing away money every single month. Private mortgage insurance is you giving them money to ensure that you're going to keep paying your loan. It's insurance for them that you have to pay. And people generally have to pay this until they have 20% equity in their house. What a lot of people don't know is that PMI is actually negotiable. When we bought our house, we had no idea that this was the case. And so we just took it and we thought that we had to pay it. When we refinanced several years later, we actually discovered that PMI is negotiable. We had a really good credit score. We had fixed up our house and our house appraised at a lot higher. And our new lender was actually able to waive PMI for us. So definitely ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated, because again, this can save you hundreds and hundreds of dollars, possibly thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. Another good question to ask is simply, how can I lower my interest rate? This is of course going to save you a ton of money, and they might give you some really concrete, good ideas on how to get your interest rate lower. That could look like getting your credit score higher. This could also look like possibly getting a different sized loan. You could get a 15, 20, or 30-year loan. So take a look at those options to get that interest rate as low as humanly possible. After you're pre-approved, you're going to want to find your real estate agent. Now, you're going to enter into an agreement with this agent, and this agreement basically just says that you're going to use this agent and this agent only. You're not going to make them do all this work and then at the last second go with a different agent. This is sometimes called a buyer's consultation or buyer's consultation meeting agreement, but basically they're going to have you sign some paperwork that says you're going to work with this agent exclusively. Now that you know what you're pre-approved for and you're working with an agent, you're going to want to download an app or some sort of live listing that you can update daily. When you look at these houses, you're going to want to have what's called earnest money readily available. Usually this is a security deposit of about 1%. So go ahead and put it in either your checking account or open a separate checking account and deposit the money in there. And that way it's ready to go whenever you find your house. So here's my pro tip when looking at houses. First of all, take lots of pictures. Second of all, label those pictures and take lots of notes. The first 3 to 5 houses you go to, you think, wow, I'll remember everything. This is great. But the 10th house you go to, the 20th house you go to, you're not going to be remembering every little detail, and you don't want to have to go back to houses that you've already been to. So make sure you take lots of pictures and take lots of notes that are associated and tied to those pictures to help you remember what you like about the house and what you don't like about the house. When you think you find the house, you're going to want to put an offer on this house. Now remember, just because you put an offer on a house doesn't mean that you now have to buy that house. There's still a lot of steps left. So keep that in mind. You're also going to want to look at the seller's disclosure. So this includes anything in the house that might be broken or things that they know of that are going to need to be fixed in the next couple of months. In the offer, you're also going to want to include any big appliances that you want left in the house. Usually this is like the refrigerator or the washer dryer, and your agent will walk you through all those steps as well. Once you put your offer in, now the owners have three options. They can counter your offer, they can reject it altogether, or they can choose to accept. Once it's accepted, now you move on to the inspection phase. And again, your agent will help walk you through this part of the process, but now you're going to set up the inspection of the home. Here's another pro tip for you, and something that I wish we had done is to go through the inspection with the inspector. They're going to be pointing out things that need to be fixed. You can help them also see things that might need to be fixed or adjusted in terms of the offer. It's a really, really good idea to do the walkthrough with them, because I felt like our inspector was a little lax. I would have wanted him to be way more detail oriented than he was. And so that's my tip for you guys, is to do the walkthrough with the inspector. After the inspection, then comes the appraisal. When a home is appraised, it's basically given a value based on the home itself and also based on the housing market around the house. This is important for the lender because deals can fall apart when the home is being sold for, let's say, $300,000, but it only appraised for $270,000. The bank's gonna have an issue with this, and they may not lend you the money because it's a bad investment for them. The home isn't even worth what they're trying to sell it for. So this doesn't happen super often, but just something to be aware of as you go through the appraisal part of the process. At this point, the only thing that's left before the renegotiation are any surveys that need to take place on the house and surrounding areas. The most popular one is a flood survey. So if the house is near water, this is a really important survey to pay attention to, because you do not want to pay flood insurance on your house. Now that we've done the inspection, the appraisal, and any surveys that need to take place, the only thing left is to renegotiate. Is there a reason to change your offer based on what you found during those three things? If so, again, they counter or accept or reject. And then once you come to an agreement, you bought a house, and the only thing left is to close. The benefits of being on the buying side of things is that your agent will typically cost you $0. But this does not mean that closing costs are free. Usually closing costs, unless you've worked this out with the lender ahead of time, is going to be rolled into your loan. Again, your agent will give you very specific instructions, but you'll need a cashier's check most likely and a government issued ID when you go to close. They'll make you sign your name approximately 3,000 times, and then the house is yours. I know it can seem like a very long and sometimes confusing process, but this is why it's really important to have an agent that you trust with you. They're going to be communicating with you. They're going to be walking you through this process that they could do in their sleep. And so it's very important to have an agent that you trust and that knows the process inside and out. All right, so now let's talk about some very common misconceptions that happen when people buy their first house. The first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is don't expect to sleep in the house the day you get the keys. This was a mistake that we made when we first moved into our house. We opened the doors and there was junk in the house everywhere. They didn't take a bunch of lamps, they left a big TV, there was stuff on the walls, the carpet needed to be basically ripped out and completely replaced. So definitely pay attention, have somewhere to stay while you paint, while you fix things, while you kind of go through and do your own inspection of the house to see what needs to be replaced and what needs to be cleaned especially. Another common misconception is that people think that everyone gets a 30-year fixed mortgage. Although this is the most popular option, a lot of people get a 15-year or even a 20-year mortgage. There's also some perks that happen when you get a 15 or 20. Your interest rate sometimes, depending on your lender, can go down fairly significantly. So definitely ask your lender, which leads me to my third common misconception, that all lenders are the same, that the interest rates are the same across the board, that everything is identical, and it's just not true. Again, when we refinanced, we went to a completely different lender that was willing to work with us on PMI and interest rate, and we were able to shorten our loan from 30 years to 20 years. So I know I'm harping on this, but definitely shop around for your lender. This is such a big decision. Another very common misconception, and this one is a little bit more specific once you're in the house, but it's that using your heat and air less will actually save you money. This is a huge misconception. Using your heat and air less actually hurts the energy efficiency of your home. If you keep it at a steady temperature all day and all night, this is actually the best and most optimized for your HVAC system. Here are some other ways that you can actually help your HVAC system and the energy efficiency of your home. And the first one is blackout curtains. These are so cheap. You can buy them at Walmart or on Amazon, and you put them up in your windows and it blocks the sun. And it also just helps if your windows are not super energy efficient. It helps insulate that part of the wall. Another thing is blow-in insulation in your attic. This is huge. We bought a truckload of blow-in insulation and put it in our house, and it has helped significantly lower our utility bill each month. My third way is to actually plant trees. If you plan on being in your home for a long time and your home is constantly in the sun, there are some really fast growing types of trees that you can plant, and these will provide shade for your home down the road. A few other great ways to help lower your utility bill is to replace your exterior doors. This was a huge one for us. Again, we replaced our door that goes from our entryway into our garage, and this has helped significantly. There was tons of air going between those cracks because the door was old. Another great way is to replace your windows. A little bit more expensive depending on what company you go with, but again, this can help in big ways for a long time. You replace the windows once, you don't have to replace them again for 5, 6, 7 years, and you reap the benefits in between those times. Another great way is to replace your thermostat with a smart thermostat, like a Nest, which is what we have, and I'll link it below in the description. The fourth common misconception when it comes to living in a house is that DIY is always cheaper than hiring a professional, and this is not true. Trust me, we live in a house where the previous owner thought that they could DIY anything and everything, and now we're here years later cleaning up the messes that he actually started. And I'm not saying that DIY is always bad and that you always need to hire a professional, but really be smart about it. If you're YouTubing something while on a ladder, this is probably a good indication that you need to call a professional. My next common misconception, and this is a big one, is that your mortgage payment cannot change. It cannot go up if you have a fixed interest rate. And this is, again, not true. We have a fixed interest rate and our payment has gone up because of property taxes. Your interest rate and your interest part of the payment is actually only a piece of your overall mortgage payment. You also have principal, you also have taxes and insurance. There's 4 components when it comes to your mortgage payment. And so if you have a fixed interest rate, that's great. That part of your mortgage payment won't change, but your property taxes can still go up and affect your mortgage payment each month. Another really big common misconception is that you have to have 20% in equity before PMI can be taken off your mortgage payment. And again, this is the general rule. This is true of most, but it's not true of all lenders. So definitely talk to your lender. Again, PMI, I'm going to run the numbers here for you in a second. PMI can be a pretty good chunk of change each month. And if you can get that taken off your mortgage payment, it's not going to affect the principal. It's not going to affect the interest. And it's one of the best ways to save money when you buy a new house. All right. So to recap really quick, we've already covered the home buying process. We took a step-by-step look at that. We looked at common misconceptions that occur when people buy their first house. The next thing that I want to do for you guys, and this looks very overwhelming at first glance, but I'm going to go really line by line and show you the actual difference between renting versus buying a house. I hear all the time, renting is just throwing money away. I hear that a lot. People want to have skin in the game. They want to have equity, and I love that, but I don't want you to get into a situation where you're in over your head. Things are costing way more than you thought they were going to. So what I want to do is take a look at this first. So the national average rent payment is $1,025. I looked at a national average because I know I have followers from not only Missouri, St. Louis, where I am from, but I've got people on the East Coast and the West Coast. The national average mortgage payment on a $200,000 home, again, national average, $40,000 down, a 30-year loan, so that's the term of the loan at 4% interest per year. The principal on each payment would be $302. The interest on each payment would start at $462. Insurance would be $99. Property taxes would be $190. So when you're comparing just the rent payment and the mortgage payment, yes, these are very, very close. $1,053 versus $1,025. However, we are not comparing just the rent payment and the mortgage payment. There's a lot of other things that go into your house. For example, I added on here utilities. National average is $172 a month. I thought that was very reasonable. Repairs, if you divide up repairs, are you going to spend $333 a month exactly? No. But when you replace your roof or your HVAC system, appliances, then these repairs are going to be expensive and they're going to be made not every month, but usually all at once, every 6 months or every couple of years. So spread out, that comes out to $333 a month. So now we're up to $1,558 a month. This is about 50% more than $1,025. We're at $1,558 when we include utilities and repairs, which are two things that you don't have to pay for when you are renting. So let's take it one step further here. Without the $40K. So remember, we've already put $40,000 down. So not only were these, pretty much the same, 1,000 and 1,000, but we've already got $40,000 sunk into this house. Let's say we don't have that kind of a down payment. PMI, which we talked about earlier, is private mortgage insurance, would be an additional $208, bringing the total to now $1,766 a month. So this is also without any home furnishings or decorating. I didn't even add anything quote unquote fun that you would want to spend money on once you got the house. Very, very eye-opening. I think everyone would agree. Renting's not looking too bad now, right? $1,025 versus $1,766 is really what we're comparing here. So very telling. Feel free to screenshot this page, run these numbers yourself, take a look at, if you're looking at a house, run these numbers the same way I did here to really compare, is your rent payment and your monthly housing expense payment going to be similar, right? That's really the goal. And I'm not saying don't buy a house, but I want you to go into buying a house educated. I want you to really be aware of all of these expenses. I think it's really, really important, like I just showed you, to run the numbers on a house versus your apartment before committing. The second thing that I would have you do is really run the numbers on a 15-year mortgage versus a 30. I know I mentioned in the most common misconceptions portion of the video that a lot of people believe that everyone gets a 30-year mortgage, but this may not be the best choice for you. I know I had mentioned also that we had a 30-year mortgage and then we refinanced and got a 20-year. So here's the numbers. The loan amount is $250,000 right here. We've got the 15-year compared to the 30-year. Number of payments. So this is the total amount of payments that you'll be paying. We've got 180 versus 360 payments. The average interest rate, and again, you'd have to check with your particular lender to see what the difference in interest would be, but here it's 4.18% versus 4.76%. So not only are you paying over a much longer period of time, you're paying interest over twice as much time, but you're also paying more interest over twice as many years. The monthly payment here is $1,871 versus $1,305. Total interest paid, we have $86,933. So that sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but this is also without any extra on the 15-year mortgage. On the 30-year, if you think that's a lot, on the 30-year, we've got $220,000 of interest paid. And then total amounts paid, of course. So you're almost paying just as much in interest as you are for the house, which is staggering, absolutely staggering. So in the 15-year, all this to say, you have over $130,000 in savings with a 15-year mortgage. But this monthly payment is going to be, of course, the biggest thing that you feel during those 15 or 30 years. So just some interesting information that I want you guys to know after you look at apartment versus house, look at the 15-year versus the 30-year or versus the 20-year, whatever might be right for you. Again, talk to your lender. They'll be able to direct you on what they believe will be best. Wow, I have given you guys a lot to think about and a lot to do. So please let me know below in the comment section, what is the one thing that you're going to take from this video and implement before you buy your first house? What is the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from this video? I would love to know. I am really excited about my next video, which is going to be 4 reasons why you should forget your student loan forgiveness program. I have heard horror stories of people applying again and again just to get denied when they're banking on this. So I'm going to talk about that in my next video, and I'll see you guys there.